You know, we all think of our dreams as these wild, totally unpredictable movies that play out in our heads. But what if I told you that underneath all that chaos, there's actually an engine, a machine with its own rules, its own cycles, and yeah, even its own red line? Today, we're going to pop the hood on this incredible idea called the Brain Kinematics Model and really get into the mechanics of your very own dream engine.
So that really gets us to the big question, right? Is all that stuff you experience at night just random neural static? Just your brain firing off nonsense? Or are your dreams, even the weirdest ones, actually following a hidden set of physical laws? Well, this model says they are, and that we can actually map them out.
So here's our blueprint for today. First, we're going to look at the engine's most basic cycle. Then, we'll see what happens when it hits that red line. After that, we'll trace the wiring, how dream pathways actually form. We'll map the engine's core parts in the brain, see how the whole system connects to your body, and then, finally, we'll put it all together with the unified laws of dreaming.
All right, first up, the engine's basic cycle. It turns out pretty much every thought, and definitely every dream, runs on this fundamental pattern of energy flow called the strain arc.
This right here simplifies everything. See, at the very heart of this model is the idea of strain, and all that is really is the total neural energy buzzing around in your brain at any given moment. Just think of it as a mix of all your emotions, your memories, your worries, all bundled together. Every single dream follows this exact arc. It starts, the energy builds and builds to a peak, and then it resolves. This is the basic fuel cycle of your mind.
But this cycle can run in two very different ways. A positive arc, that's like a perfectly tuned engine. The tension builds, it hits its peak, and then it just smoothly resolves. But a negative arc, that's when the engine stalls out. The pressure builds up so much that it destabilizes the entire system and leads to a total collapse, which for us usually feels like a nightmare or just waking up suddenly.
So if strain is the fuel, then you know every engine has a red line. And in our dreams, this is called the critical strain threshold. It's the absolute peak of the entire experience.
This equation really captures the whole idea. The climax of a dream happens when the total mental strain you're feeling, plus the extra pressure from how fast that strain is rising, finally hits the absolute maximum capacity of the system. Your brain is officially full. It's that moment where the engine just can't take any more load and something has to give.
Now, this is an absolutely crucial point. When your dream hits its climax, your brain isn't breaking. There's no physical damage happening. It's a functional boundary. It just means the system has reached the absolute limit of its ability to process all that information coherently, and so something has to change.
Okay, let's move on to the wiring. A dream isn't just a big blast of energy, right? It's a story, and it follows a very specific pathway. So the question is, how does that pathway even get created?
You could think of it like this. A dream story can only travel down a path where all the neurons are in perfect alignment. This means the balance between the go signals and the stop signals is just right, and all the neurons are firing in sync, ready to pass that message along. If that alignment isn't strong enough, the pathway just can't form, and the dream kind of fizzles out.
And this is so cool. Check out what happens right at that peak. In the very center of the pathway, everything's perfectly aligned. That's the dream at its climax. But at that exact same moment, the edges start to fray. The neurons fall out of sync, the stop signals start kicking in, and the whole path begins to destabilize. This is that tipping point that forces the dream to either resolve itself or just completely collapse.
So far, we've been talking about all these abstract forces and pathways. Well, now let's get real and map these ideas onto the physical components of the engine, the specific regions inside your brain.
We can think of these three regions as the brain's dream team. You've got the amygdala, which creates this sharp peak of emotional energy. It's basically your emotional amplifier. Then there's the hippocampus, which forms this long corridor, providing the story's flow and its context. And finally, the prefrontal cortex, or PFC, acts like a big canopy over everything, trying to regulate and control the whole show.
And here's the play-by-play of how they all work together. First, the hippocampus sets the scene. Then, the amygdala comes in and injects that raw emotion, the fear, the joy, the urgency. At the climax, you can see them all firing together, and that PFC is working like a shield, desperately trying to contain the amygdala's emotional explosion. If the PFC wins, you get a nice, peaceful resolution. If it fails, the whole dream collapses.
Okay, now let's talk about the transmission system. How does this purely mental event, this dream, connect to real, actual physical responses in your body?
Well, that connection isn't just a simple on or off switch. Sometimes, yeah, you have full coupling, where the dream's climax and a physical response are perfectly in sync. But you can also have a dream with a purely mental or symbolic climax, or even a situation where your body's physical arousal is way stronger than the dream's actual content.
And we can actually measure this connection. It's with something called the coupling coefficient, or C-index. Just think of it as a score from 0 to 1 that tells you exactly how in sync your mind and body are during a dream. It's just a simple look at the dream's intensity, your body's readiness, and how well their timing lines up.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Look at this data from actual dreams. A dream about losing an office, which is pure symbolic stress, right, has a C-index that's basically 0. The body is not involved at all. But a neurotic dream that gets interrupted by anxiety, that shows partial coupling. The body was getting ready, but the mind's anxiety just slammed on the brakes. This is proof that even our most intense dreams can be almost completely disconnected from our physical selves.
Okay, let's put it all together. We have explored all the parts, the cycles, the limits. Now it's time to look at the owner's manual, the unified laws of your dream engine. It all really boils down to these 4 fundamental laws. Number 1, you're way more likely to dream about things you haven't resolved yet. 2, your dreams will always peak when the system hits its absolute capacity. 3, the story can only follow a path where the brain's neurons are properly aligned. And 4, that mind-body link is a really delicate balance of intensity, timing, and control.
So, all of this brings us to one final thought. If your dreams aren't just random noise, but a structured system, an engine following a clear set of laws, then the question isn't just, what did I dream? The real question is, what problem was my brain trying to solve tonight?